Picture this. The year is 2470 before Christ. You are standing in the courtyard of the great palace at Memphis. The sun is already unbearable at dawn. Around you, temple guards form a silent circle. You cannot move. Your wrists are bound to a wooden post driven deep into the stone. A high priest approaches. He is carrying something, a ceramic jar, sealed with beeswax. You can hear movement inside, buzzing. Here is what you need to understand about ancient Egypt. When we think of their punishments, we picture mummification, curses, maybe being buried alive. The history books show us pyramids and golden masks. They do not show you this. What the first am about to reveal is documented in hieroglyphic texts discovered in the Temple of Karnak in 1947. Texts that Egyptologists initially refused to translate for public consumption. Texts that describe a punishment so calculated, so psychologically devastating, that it was reserved for only the worst offenses against the pharaoh. The punishment was called the milk and honey. If you believe that the documented records of history's most terrifying practices must be remembered, consider liking this video and subscribing. Your support unearths more accounts from the darkest corners of the human story. The name sounds almost pleasant, does it not? That is the genius of it. The horror hides behind poetry. Let me take you inside the actual process. Not the sanitized version, the documented reality. You are the prisoner. Let us say you have committed treason. Maybe you spoke against Pharaoh Khufu. Maybe you were caught stealing from a royal tomb. Maybe you simply knew too much about palace secrets. The sentence is pronounced: milk and honey. The guards strip you naked. This is not about humiliation, not yet. It is practical. What comes next requires exposed skin. They bind you between two narrow boats, not full-size vessels. Small rowing boats, each maybe 6 feet long. One boat is placed on the ground. You are forced to lie in it, face up. Your head, hands, and feet protrude from holes cut specifically for this purpose. Then the second boat is placed on top, creating a wooden coffin with your extremities exposed. Leather straps bind the boats together. You cannot move. You can breathe. You can see the sky. That is when the priest approaches with the first jar. Inside is a mixture. Milk and honey, just as the name promises. But this is not for drinking. Think about what I am describing here. They have designed boats with precise measurements, cut holes at exact positions, and created a mixture with specific properties. This is not improvised cruelty. This is engineering. The priest begins to feed you. He pours the milk and honey mixture down your throat. You have no choice but to swallow. If you resist, they pinch your nose closed until you gasp for air. You drink until your stomach distends. Then he takes the remaining mixture and spreads it across every inch of exposed skin. Your face, your hands, your feet. Any part of you that protrudes from the boats gets coated in this sweet, sticky substance. Then they leave you in the sun. Here is where the machine starts working. Within hours, the first flies arrive. They are attracted to the sweetness covering your skin. They land on your face. You cannot brush them away. You cannot move your hands to protect yourself. They crawl into your ears, your nostrils, the corners of your eyes. But that is not the mechanism. That is just the beginning. The real horror starts inside your body. Remember, they have force-fed you milk and honey. Your digestive system, overwhelmed by the sudden influx of sugar and dairy, responds predictably. You develop severe diarrhea. You are still trapped in the boats, still unable to move, still lying in your own waste. This is where the name becomes truly sinister. The milk and honey refers not just to what they feed you, but to what your body produces. Ancient Egyptian texts describe it as the prisoner becoming a vessel of milk and honey, and the milk and honey becoming a vessel for divine judgment. The waste accumulates in the boat beneath you. You are lying in it. The mixture of excrement, milk, honey, and your own sweat creates something specific. a breeding ground. Think about the psychology here. You are not being killed quickly. You are being transformed into an ecosystem. The flies that were attracted to the honey on your face discover something far more appealing. The waste pooling around your body. They begin to lay eggs. Within 24 hours, the first larvae appear. The guards return twice daily, not to release you, to feed you more milk and honey, to ensure the process continues, to ensure you stay conscious throughout. Historical accounts from the Greek historian Plutarch, who documented Egyptian practices in the 1st century Anno Domini, describe prisoners surviving for 17 days in this state. 17 days in this state. Let me walk you through what happens during that time. Not to be gratuitous, but because understanding the systematic nature of this punishment reveals something crucial about how civilizations maintain power through terror. Day 1. The discomfort begins. The sun burns your exposed skin. The flies are maddening, but manageable. You tell yourself you can endure this. Day 2. The diarrhea becomes constant. You are lying in your own filth. The smell is overwhelming. The flies are now swarming. You can feel them on your eyelids, in your ears. You cannot sleep. Day 3. The first larvae begin hatching. You can feel movement in the waste beneath you. You are not sure if you are imagining it. You pray you are imagining it. Day 4. You are not imagining it. The larvae begin feeding. Not on the waste, on you. They start with the areas where your skin is broken down by constant exposure to excrement. Think about what this does to the human mind. You are fully conscious. Guards ensure you continue eating and drinking enough to survive. The milk and honey keep coming. Day 5. The maggots are now visible on your exposed skin. You watch them. You cannot do anything else. You just watch as they crawl across your face. Day 6. You start screaming. Not from physical pain yet, though that is building, but from the psychological break. You have been transformed from a human being into a feeding station for insects. Day 7. 1 week. The Greek accounts describe this as the breaking point for most prisoners. Some begin begging for death. Egyptian law forbade ending the punishment early. The sentence was milk and honey until natural death. Here is what makes this especially disturbing. The punishment was not designed to kill you quickly. It was designed to display you. The boats were placed in public squares, in the marketplace at Memphis, outside temples, anywhere the public would pass by daily. You became a lesson. Inscriptions found in the Valley of Kings describe the purpose explicitly. Let the people see what becomes of those who rise against divine authority. Let them watch the days pass. Let them count the transformation from man to feast. Day 10. By this point, according to medical analysis of the ancient descriptions, infection has spread throughout the body. The maggots have burrowed into deeper tissue. Sepsis begins. The prisoner typically develops a high fever. Delirium sets in, but consciousness remains. The body clings to life even as it is being consumed. Day 14. 2 weeks. The smell of gangrene joins the other odors. Exposed flesh has begun to necrotize. The maggots have done their work thoroughly. Day 17. Death, when it finally comes, is typically from septic shock or dehydration. The body simply cannot maintain function any longer. But here is the thing that should keep you awake tonight. Throughout this entire process, 17 days of systematic decomposition while alive, the prisoner remained legally alive under Egyptian law. They were not executed. Execution was quick. A sword, a rope, poison. This was something else entirely. This was erasure. The Egyptian term for the punishment, when fully translated, means becoming undone while witnessed. Not death, undoing. Think about the infrastructure required to maintain this system. Purpose-built boats, guards assigned to twice daily feeding, public spaces designated for display, legal frameworks that distinguished between execution and undoing. This was not random brutality. This was bureaucratized psychological warfare. If this moment in history does not move you to learn more, you might be missing the lesson our ancestors died to teach. Archaeological evidence shows the punishment was used throughout the Old Kingdom period, roughly 2700 to 2200 before Christ. That's 500 years. 20 generations of Egyptians grew up seeing these boats in public squares. Here's what most people don't understand about ancient civilization. We imagine them as primitive because they lacked our technology. But when it came to social control, maintaining power, and breaking the human spirit, they were sophisticated beyond our comprehension. The milk and honey wasn't about punishment. It was about demonstration. Every person who walked past those boats learned a lesson. Not don't commit treason. That's too simple. The real lesson was, your body is not your own. Your death is not your own. Even your decomposition is not your own. The Pharaoh controls everything, including the manner and speed of your undoing. Now, here's where the story takes a darker turn. In 2011, during excavations at the Abu Sir Pyramid Complex, archaeologists discovered something unexpected. A chamber beneath what was thought to be a standard administrative building. Inside were 47 sets of wooden boats, paired boats bound with ancient leather straps. Each pair showed identical hole patterns. Each pair showed evidence of prolonged exposure to organic decomposition. The boats were stacked in rows, stored like equipment, like tools waiting to be used. Dr. Miroslav Werner, leading the excavation, published his findings in the Journal of Egyptian Archaeology. His analysis suggested the chamber was a storage facility, a warehouse for the implements of this specific punishment. 47 sets of boats. Each set could hold one prisoner. The boats showed signs of repeated use, cleaned, dried, and stored for the next condemned person. Think about that. Not ritual objects, not one-time ceremonial pieces, reusable equipment. The bureaucratization of horror. Here is what haunts me about this discovery. The chamber was located beneath an administrative building. Not a temple, not a palace, an office building. Near the boats, they found papyrus fragments, partially preserved records. One fragment, catalog number P.Abuzir the 4.23, contains what appears to be an inventory list. The translation reads, "Boats for milk and honey. 47 sets maintained, 12 sets in current usage, 35 sets in storage, awaiting purification and repair. Request 6 new sets to replace those damaged beyond restoration. Request forms, maintenance schedules, inventory counts." This was a line item in somebody's bureaucratic responsibilities. Some Egyptian administrators' job included managing the boat supply for prisoners undergoing systematic decomposition. He probably went home to his family after work, played with his children, complained about his supervisor, and maintained the equipment designed to undo human beings over 17 days. Here is the question that keeps historians awake. How many people died this way? If 12 sets were in current usage at any given time, that means 12 prisoners simultaneously undergoing the punishment. If the average duration was 17 days, that is roughly 250 prisoners per year being processed through this system. Over 500 years of documented use, 125,000 people. That number is speculative, of course, based on the assumption that usage remained constant. But even if we reduce it by 1/2, by 3/4, we are still talking about tens of thousands of human beings who experienced this specific form of death. Tens of thousands of people who spent their final days as public lessons, whose bodies became teaching tools, whose undoing was witnessed, documented, and discussed in the marketplaces of Memphis. The Greek historian Herodotus, visiting Egypt in 450 before Christ, more than 2,000 years after the Old Kingdom, still heard stories about the punishment, and still recorded it in his histories. 2,000 years later, the memory had not faded. That is the real power of this system, not the immediate horror of the punishment itself, but the generational trauma it inflicted. Parents warned children, priests invoked it in sermons, Officials referenced it in legal proceedings. The boats became symbols more powerful than armies. Here is what we know about who received this sentence. Hieroglyphic records from the 4th dynasty list specific offenses: plotting against the pharaoh's life, speaking prophecies against divine rule, desecrating royal tombs, revealing secret rituals, refusing to recant heretical teachings. Notice what is missing from that list: common crimes, theft, assault, even murder. These were not punished with milk and honey. This was reserved for ideological threats, for people who challenged the fundamental structure of Egyptian power. Punishment was not about justice. It was about destroying examples. Think about what this tells us. If someone simply killed a pharaoh, they would be executed quickly. But if someone convinced others to question the pharaoh's divine authority, if someone spread ideas that might undermine the entire system, they needed to be unmade, publicly, slowly, in a way that would terrify anyone who might share similar thoughts. In 1964, psychologist Dr. James Mitchell analyzed the documented effects of this punishment as part of a study on systematic torture methods. His conclusion, published in the American Journal of Forensic Psychology, identified 3 phases of psychological breakdown. Phase 1: terror and resistance. The prisoner and resistance. The prisoner believes they can endure. They mentally prepare for physical pain. Phase 2: realization and despair. Usually days 3 through 7. The prisoner realizes this is not about pain they can endure. It is about transformation they cannot prevent. They are not being hurt. They are being changed into something else. Phase 3: dissociation and acceptance. The mind fractures. The prisoner stops identifying with their own body. They watch their own consumption from a psychological distance. Dr. Mitchell's analysis suggested that by day 10, most prisoners had experienced complete ego death. They no longer identified as individual. They had become psychologically exactly what the punishment intended. Examples, not people. Here is the thing that should truly disturb you. This method was so psychologically effective that variations of it appeared in other ancient civilizations. The Persians had a similar punishment called scaphism, nearly identical in design and execution. The Carthaginians had their own version. Different cultures, separated by hundreds of miles and years, independently developed the same systematic approach to destroying people while keeping them alive. What does that tell us about human nature? About power? About the universal language of terror? In the Abu Simbel temples, there is a relief carving that tourists pass every day. It shows Ramesses II in triumph, prisoners kneeling before him, standard imagery. But look closer at the carving's edges. There in the background, almost too small to notice, 2 boats, bound together, a small figure visible between them. It is easy to miss, most visitors never see it. But once you know what to look for, you cannot stop seeing it. It appears in temple after temple. Background detail in victory scenes, a reminder so constant it became invisible. The boats are always there, in the shadows of triumph, waiting. Now, we have to confront something uncomfortable. How do we remember this? What do we do with this knowledge? Some historians argue we should not discuss it. That describing such punishment serves no purpose. That it is gratuitous horror masquerading as education. But here is what I think they are missing. The Egyptians did not hide this. They carved it into temple walls. They stored the equipment in official warehouses. They documented it in papyrus records. They wanted it remembered, not because they were uniquely evil, but because they understood something about power that we are uncomfortable acknowledging. Fear works. Public suffering works. Transforming people into lessons works. And if we pretend it did not happen, if we focus only on the pyramids and the gold and the glory, we are complicit in the erasure the victims experienced twice. Once in their bodies, once in our memory. The 125,000 people, if that estimate is even close, deserve more than silence. They deserve to be remembered as people. People who had names we will never know. People who had families who were forced to watch. People who spent 17 days experiencing something that breaks the imagination. In 2019, the Egyptian Museum in Cairo quietly updated several exhibits. Display cases that had held ceremonial boats from the Old Kingdom were relabeled. The new descriptions acknowledge the boat's actual purpose. Visitors can now see them, the actual implements, weathered wood, precise holes, leather binding points, still visible. They look so ordinary, like simple rowing boats, like something a fisherman might use. That is the final horror. The machinery of undoing looks like carpentry. Here's what we are left with: an ancient civilization that built wonders. The pyramids, the Sphinx, temples that still inspire awe 4,000 years later. The same civilization that created a systematic method for destroying people over 17 days while maintaining them as public education. Both things are Egypt. We do not get to choose which truth to remember. The question is not whether ancient Egypt was evil. That is too simple, too comfortable. The real question is, what does it say about human civilization that we have always known how to break each other this completely? That separated cultures invented identical machines for undoing people? And what other calculated horrors are hiding in history's shadows, waiting in museum storage rooms, carved into temple backgrounds we have learned not to see? If this exposed something you have never heard before, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications, because we are going to keep uncovering the history they tried to erase. Drop a comment with your thoughts and I will see you in the next investigation. The boats are still in Cairo, still on display. You can visit them if you want. Just remember what you are looking at. Not ceremonial vessels, not religious artifacts. Tools designed for a specific job. And they were very, very good at that job. For 500 years.